Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Thank you for listening to Your Working Life, my podcast series featuring thought leaders in the career and personal growth arena. You spend a significant portion of your life at work, so I'm on a mission to provide you with tools, inspiration, and resources so you can enjoy your career and love your life. And I'm so delighted to welcome my very special guest to the show, Edward G. Brown. Welcome. I'm glad you're with me today.
Thank you, Caroline. It's my honor to be here.
Well, I want to tell the audience a little bit about you, and then we're going to dive into a wonderful conversation about the book. Edward G. Brown is the author of The Time Bandit Solution, Recovering Stolen Time You Never Knew You Had, and co-founder of the #1 firm in culture change management consulting and training for the financial services industry, Cohen Brown Management Group, now in 50 countries and 12 languages. Its past and present clients include companies such as Commonwealth Bank of Australia, Royal Bank of Canada, CIBC, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, Barclays, Prudential Life, and Merrill Lynch. Now, Ed, I am so excited about this book. It is just stunningly beautiful. I am sitting here holding a copy in front of me right now. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I read a lot of books because I feature authors on my show. And this is truly a work of art. And I want to dive in and ask you if you would indulge me. And I'd love for you to go right to chapter 7, because this concept is so in line, this mindful meditation, with a message that I share with my listeners. Can you tell me that story?
I'd be delighted. My mother was passing on, and I had been living with her in Florida. And to help get through the experience, I took up scuba diving with my wife, Sheree, and didn't know enough to recognize that by descending 30 feet, and then immediately ascending and then descending, ascending, descending, which I was doing because Sheree was having difficulties with her regulator. And I was trying to help her gain the confidence so that we could swim and enjoy the day. When the day concluded, I began to feel some pain in my left forearm. And the dive master told me that I may have contracted the bends and to get to an emergency room immediately, which I did. When I arrived, I met a physician who said, "You're a very lucky man." I said, "I don't think so. I'm in a lot of pain." He said, "Yes, you are, but you'll get out of the pain after you go through the experience with this decompression chamber." A decompression chamber looks like a coffin. It's made out of lucite. You can see out, but there's really not much to see. And so I explained to him I couldn't do this because of claustrophobia. He said, you must do this, Ed. It's, you find that no self-preserving human being runs into and comes out of events like a baby caught in a situation that requires the removal of a car. But yet, when we're in a state of emergency and do things that we don't think possible, we somehow summon up the courage and the ability to do the impossible, and that's what I was about to do. I stepped into the chamber and thought to myself that I must find a way forward. And since I had been teaching psychotherapeutic techniques and time management, I decided while in there, I would write a book. What else could I possibly do that would give me the ability to be with myself for that many hours, when most of us, including me, without a solution for mental leakage, cannot spend more than 10 minutes concentrating on one topic, even the writing of a book, but not this book. This book would focus on mental leakage. The fact that we get distracted by the smartphone, which we look at, according to a Deloitte study, 150 times a day. And when we find ourselves in some form of discomfort, the air conditioning isn't working, that sort of thing, we try not to let it bother us so much. And I used all of the techniques I was teaching. There are 6: transcending the environment, constructive acceptance, visualizing the ideal self, positive affirmation, counterpunching, and changing your internal computer chip. All of this I had to use inside that decompression chamber. To begin with, I decided not to be there. Thus, in transcending the environment, I closed my eyes and used 14 steps, including inhalation with the mantra. In this case, I chose the cosmos as my mantra because I didn't want to be in the chamber. And I found myself well beyond Earth, and I could look down at Earth, see it. So I certainly wasn't in the chamber. And on my return, I found myself using the term calm, which is what I kept saying to myself before I got in the chamber. Ed, remain calm. No matter what you experience, you must be calm. So this technique of transcending the environment is one of the critical techniques I wrote about in chapter 7. So you might understand this, Caroline. I actually wrote what I'm about to tell you because I became my own case study.
Yeah.
The constructive acceptance I had to experience made me use the serenity prayer. God, please give me the serenity to accept that which I cannot change that which I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I actually found myself saying that a number of times. And as I continued to use meditative relaxation and on the inhalation, did self-visualization techniques, I visualized not only that I wasn't there, that by the time I finished this experience in the chamber, I was going to finish outlining at least the Time Bandit Solutions book. And as negative feelings came to my mind, I used counterpunching. The negative feeling became the basis under which I would have to block the negative feeling and counterpunch the negative feeling with the positive feeling. Nature abhors vacuums. So I would either have to remain negative or I could become positive if I knew what to do. And I used to watch boxing matches, and the greatest counterpuncher of all time, Muhammad Ali, used counterpunching to win most of his challenges. And I did that with the psychology of counterpunching negative ideas with positive ideas. Although I might have felt that this would have been an impossible experience, I decided to change my internal computer chip and say, this is a blessing. This is not happening as a punishment for anything I've done. I've done nothing wrong. So meditative relaxation literally saved me from a potential meltdown. And I elected to write about it. And that's why it's there in chapter 7. And I've come to use it as the basis of my lectures, as well as chapter 7. And I'd like to ask you, Carolyn, if you have any questions about what I've said.
I do, Ed. Thank you so much. That was such a powerful story, and I really appreciate your willingness to share it with us today. So I again could just visualize you in that scenario. What I would now like to do is dive into the world of work, and you have such extraordinary work that you do with companies, as I mentioned in the intro. So what is the importance of mindfulness meditation for a company's bottom line, for example?
Carolyn, that's a great question. 40 to 60% of our time is totally wasted by unplanned, unwanted, and completely unproductive interruptions. It's remarkable that we get anything done
Mm.
in an 8 hour day. And we allow this because we've acculturated ourselves to an interruption culture. Because with the onset of the internet, that a progeny was uh, the iPhone. And we look at our iPhone 150 times a day, according to Deloitte.
Wow.
And so we can't hardly blame ourselves for being distracted. So the question was, would the leadership of a company, knowing that we lose 40 to 60% of our time through these unnecessary, unwanted interruptions, do so if they knew that these interruptions were taking place, since they pay for the time that is being wasted? And the answer was absolutely no. Management was thrilled with the solution, which is called time locking. And a time lock is a block of uninterrupted time that we can gain if our time bandits are to cooperate by signing a mutual time lock agreement, which means not only will we not become interrupted, but we'll do everything we can to make certain the time bandit receives the same consideration we ask for.
Ah. You know, that concept just makes me smile because I know how much more productive and focused I am when I am uninterrupted. And you're right, we can achieve so much more and go deeper and be more productive. So companies have started to use meditation, but what can they actually achieve with it, Ed?
If they, if each of us know that it only takes 10 minutes during one of these time locks to visualize what we want to get achieved in a day, in the course of a single day, the possibilities are endless. You can't possibly know what you want
Hmm.
unless you focus on your critical few. What if you had 3 opportunities in the course of any day to achieve any one of 3 objectives that are the most important objectives using the 80-20 rule? Do you know what they would be? If the answer is yes, if we could visualize our ability to achieve that objective, if we didn't have these interruptions, then we need to focus on what it would take from us to implement the behaviors to be successful,
So,
eliminating all the reasons that otherwise people like you and I would have, Carolyn,
mhm.
if we were given time locks. Do we know what we want with the time that we have?
Mm, mm.
Is the question.
So, Ed, you talk about 6 psychotherapeutic techniques every company should be using. So, share a few of those. They're in the book, but if you can highlight one or two, that would be great.
Uh, a lot of people complain about their environment, particularly with open floor plan architecture.
Hmm.
There is no privacy. Uh, it was overlooked in the 1950s when that design was created. Cubicles with absolutely no ability to have the kind of privacy that we long for. But what if we had that privacy? If the privacy occurred because we not only were given time locks, but we also ignored living our life like a thermometer, but instead we lived our life like a barometer.
Mm.
The temperature goes up, but we don't feel it. The temperature goes down, we don't notice it. That's transcending the environment. It is just ignoring the things that annoy us because we are not here. We're not in that space any longer. And besides, if there's nothing we can do about it, accepting what you cannot change, and thinking about the serenity prayer, that's constructive acceptance. I wanted to be a center for my basketball team. A center has to be at least 6'3" or 4". I was just 6 feet, and so I played guard. And I was disappointed, but I came to accept it. And I visualized myself as becoming the very best guard in basketball in high school. And I became very, very good. And I suppose visualizing the ideal self is accepting things for what they are, but constructively, transcending the environment that you cannot change, and using positive affirmation as a means of saying to yourself, I'm the best, or I'm as good as I have to be in order to achieve any ideal I may have. We need to dream. If the minds of men can conceive, the minds of men can achieve. It's a very old cliche, but it is so true. We either create or we disintegrate.
Beautifully put. So, Edward, you talk so beautifully in the book about how to focal lock, and you describe this as the perfect tool to use during the busiest part of your day. Can you explain what that is and give us an example?
Yeah. So, as I said earlier, the time bandit that we can't control is ourselves. We suffer from mental leakage. And when I was in college, I would wait till the last moment to prepare myself for an exam. But I was able to do that because I overcame mental leakage during the lectures. I would embed what I heard, and I would sustain what I remembered right up until the time of the exam. So I had a wonderful grade point average just because I was able to concentrate. But what about college people who can't do that? And instead, they need to study more than others, and even with the study, they can't seem to concentrate on what it is they need to remember in preparation for that exam. This would be true of us in our real world. Lawyers, doctors, any one of us entrepreneurs must embed peak performance and sustain it. But first we have to visualize what it is we need to have and be for success. And then not during the planning phases can we allow mental leakage. Mental leakage is, I have to worry about tomorrow. And I'm worried about yesterday. And I'm worried. Worry kills us, Caroline, and is the cause of mental leakage. The ability to bear down on the topic enables us to control mental leakage. I call that focal locking.
Got it. Got it. So, Ed, you do talk about your own particular version of the 80-20 rule and, for example, how to differentiate your critical few from your minor many. So take that a step further and elaborate for me.
Sure, Caroline. I was told over and over as I was trading throughout the world, Fortune 500 companies, that 80-20 is useless if you really don't know how to separate the 80 from the 20. And it's useless even if you know what's 80 and what's 20. By the way, let's go over the 80-20 rule just to make certain all the listeners are clear. That 80% of what we achieve in our life is a direct result of the 20% of the things we do that have the greatest impact on what we're trying to achieve. And so if that's the story of 80-20, what's the problem? Within that 20%, you've got to prioritize. So I call that prioritization technique the critical few versus the mind of many. The critical few are those events that might take place that could destroy our company or could double the results we anticipated if only we knew what our critical one was and then prioritized. So 80/20 really is 99/1 and should be for all of us. And we need to know how to differentiate one from the other. And for that, I use something called the Dearsome logic system, defining the effect of a solution, what impact will it have, understanding the reason for an issue, developing a solution, and the solution implementation methodology is time-managed, step-by-step implementation action planning around really your critical one, and or at the very least, your critical few.
Wonderful. Edward, what I love about this book is it's so solution oriented. It gives you step by step action steps. And I thank you for that because we've been talking about how we are time starved for decades, but this is solution oriented and practical wisdom that we can all implement. So, how can we buy your book, The Time Bandit Solution, Recovering Stolen Time You Never Knew You Had?
Go to Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And Carolyn, if your readers will do something for me and your listeners will do something for me, I'll do this for them.
Okay.
They can get an ebook, and all they need to do is log in stwm.com.
Okay.
Shirley, Thomas, woman, Mary.com. There in that website, STWM, which is the video interpretation of the book, there's going to be a questionnaire. It'll ask how much time is stolen from their lives as a result of interruptions. And the video that they can also receive on a fee-free basis, if they're a corporation with over 500 employees, well, teach them how to sustain peak performance and use these psychotherapeutic techniques and control interruptions. And I would be delighted to have them receive the book fee-free if they just answer those questions and let us know the results of their quiz.
Thank you, Edward. That's very generous of you. And I want to remind the listeners it's stwm.com. You are also.
Just let me correct that. I think you said F. It's S as in Sarah.
Correct, S. But go ahead. You spell it out. You do it so beautifully.
stwm.com.
Brilliant, brilliant. And your website is timebanditsolution.com. You can also be found at cohenbrown.com. And I know, Edward, you're also active on Facebook and Twitter, and there's some excellent information out there. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with me today. It was a joy to have you on the show.
It was my joy, Caroline. You're a wonderful host.
Well, I thank you, and I wish you great success with this wonderful book.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. And I want to thank you, the listeners, for tuning into Your Working Life, where my goal is to help you design your career destiny so it doesn't happen by default. True career and life satisfaction is possible, and it's time to embrace what you love doing so you can do more of it. I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Take good care.